Hi, I'm Batsheva Frankel from Overthrowing Education, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Coming up on episode 148 of the House of EdTech podcast, welcome to 2020. We're going to hop in our House of EdTech time machine, and we're going to talk about education technology that you need to try in 2020. Strike up the band. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Chris Nesi. The House of EdTech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. I discuss technology that is changing our classrooms and schools, and I share tools and tips that you can hear today and use tomorrow. You're going to hear the stories of teachers, leaders, and creators just like you. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way you teach and how your students learn. Welcome back inside the House of EdTech podcast. My name is Chris Nesi. If this is your first time listening, welcome aboard. Happy New Year. This is a great podcast to help you integrate technology into your classroom or school. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back. Happy New Year. Let's do what we do. So my break is over. We are back at school. 2020 is well underway, and I am very, very excited for what I'm going to be doing here this year with the podcast. I've got a lot of great episodes planned out. I am refreshed. The holidays were fantastic. I hope you enjoyed your holidays and time with family and friends, and I'm glad that we are back here. One thing I do want to recommend that you do check out, if you haven't, with Podcast PD, the podcast that I host with Stacey Lindis and AJ Bianco, over the Christmas holiday, we released our 2019 12 Days of Podcast PD, and we had a lot of fun putting together those 12 episodes, and AJ and I put out a special bonus episode if you want to check that out, where we give a little behind the scenes and have a little podcast fun. So we had a blast with that, and I'm just really excited to get into what we're doing here in 2020. And this episode is really exciting because we're going to talk about technology that you should be considering here in 2020. But first, my EdTech thought, where we're going to hop into, I think for the first time, the House of EdTech time machine. So the last time that I felt like I was living in the future, it was October 21st, 2015. If you know what that means, please let me know on Twitter at Mr. Nesi. But anyway, here we are in 2020. Today's EdTech thought was inspired by my podcast listening pal, Stella Pollard. You heard her give some great recommendations on the 2019 House of EdTech Smackdown. If you haven't listened to that, go to chrisnesi.com/147 to check out the Smackdown. Anyway, Stella is a longtime listener of the show, and back in December, she tweeted me about a 2009 CNN article titled The Top 10 Tech Trends of 2009. Later in this episode, we are going to go on a little journey about what you should be doing and thinking about and trying here in 2020. But I couldn't resist. I thought it would be fun to see what was quote-unquote trendy back in 2009. So I'm going to link to this full article if you want to read it, but I'm going to share it with you right now. Here we go. This was the top 10 tech trends in 2009, and this was published on CNN.com on December 23rd, 2009. Let's go. Engineers didn't make huge improvements to technology in 2009. The year's big tech names, Twitter, Facebook, Google, Apple, Amazon, all existed before January. Instead, this is the year technology changed us. At year's end, we're connected to each other and to the internet like never before. In 2009, we carried tiny computers in our pockets through which we fed the internet constant real-time info about where we were and what we were doing. Our app-laden phones helped us manage our on-the-go lifestyles. Our books fell off the shelves and into e-readers. Our televisions and video games unchained themselves from home entertainment centers. And our mobile updates helped organize protests and even threaten governments. We could have done any of these things in 2008, but we embraced in unprecedented numbers a digital-centered life in 2009. Here's a look back at how it happened. It's CNN.com's 10 biggest tech trends of the year, listed in no particular order. If you think we missed something, let us know in the comments below. First up, the smartphone craze. By the end of 2009, having a basic cell phone wasn't good enough anymore. Now the standard is a smartphone, a mobile phone that also acts as a computer and links its users to Facebook, Twitter, and the rest of the digital universe. Despite the economic recession, the smartphone market expanded. It was fueled in part by the popular iPhone, but also by an increasingly diverse set of smartphone choices, including the Droid, BlackBerry, and Pre. Smartphone sales worldwide for 2009 were up 24% compared with 2008, according to Gartner, a research company. Thanks to these phones, people this year grew accustomed to sending email, uploading photos and videos, and posting status messages from anywhere at almost any time. Number 2, Facebook grows up. This was the year the Facebook mom and grandma came on the scene. Founded in 2004 for college students, the online social network exploded in 2008 and might have been expected to level off this year. Instead, it went global and expanded into new and older demographics. About 70% of Facebook's users now live outside of the site's home base in the United States, according to statistics released by the company. The site's importance in our lives grew in tandem with these demographic shifts. Facebook now has more than 350 million users. That's more people than live in the United States and is more than double the 150 million who were on Facebook at the start of the year. Half of Facebook users log in onto the site at least once in any given day. The average Facebook user spends nearly an hour a day on the site. Bloggers threaten regimes. Individuals became publishers in 2009, using the micro-blogging site Twitter to post instant, bite-sized updates to the world. The site was founded in 2007, but grew exponentially this year. The political ramifications of the micro-blogging trend became evident in June when Iranians used Twitter to organize and publicize protests of a disputed presidential election. The protests grabbed the world's attention. Terms related to the Iranian election made up 3 of the top 10 news trends of the year on Twitter. Books go digital. Sick of lugging hefty books with you on vacation? Portable electronic readers, with their easy-on-the-eyes displays and ability to carry hundreds of titles without gaining weight, started to make the inroads on their hardback cousins in 2009. E-book sales brought in $13.9 million in revenue in the third quarter of last year, according to International Digital Publishing Forum, a trade organization. The same time period this year saw $46.5 million in e-book revenue, a 235% spike. The Amazon Kindle, originally released in 2007, found some competition this year with the release of the Sony Reader and Barnes & Noble's Nook. Meanwhile, libraries, authors, publishers, and Google continue to haggle out the details of a settlement that could give the internet giant permission to create the world's largest library, online only. Info in an instant. In 2009, it's no longer enough to search for information that was current 30 minutes or an hour ago. Now, internet junkies look for their news, tweets, and links to be updated in real time, just as they are on Twitter. Search engines bought into this idea in 2009. Microsoft and Google struck deals with Twitter to pipe in or replicate its real-time search function. The microblogging site lets authors post short bursts of information, which become searchable the moment someone clicks send. App mania. In 2009, mobile phone customers made a strange realization. The phone isn't as important as the applications that run on it. Droves of iPhone owners downloaded games, widgets, and tools for their phones from Apple. By September, just over a year after the company started selling apps through its iTunes App Store, 2 billion of the applications had been downloaded. app mania was far from limited to Apple products, though. Research in Motion, maker of the popular BlackBerry devices, launched its own app store. And smartphones that run on Google's Android system started campaigning around Android apps, which are not subject to Apple's rigorous and somewhat controversial approval process. Games leave the living room. Remember the days when people played video games on huge TVs in their living rooms? That was so 2008. This year, gaming became mobile and social. Instead of hovering around an Xbox or a Wii, it was cooler this year to plant virtual vegetables in Farmville or run a mobster empire in Mafia Wars, two games that run through the social network Facebook. The iPhone and its cousin, the iPod Touch, also became popular mobile gaming platforms, shaking up the idea that video games must have great graphics and be backed by huge entertainment companies to succeed. Many of the year's popular phone-based games cost less than $1. Government gets techie. Government has a reputation for lagging behind the technological curve, but in 2009, the Obama administration tried to prove that bureaucrats could be hip and tech-savvy too. The administration launched data.gov, a clearinghouse of information on how the federal government works and how tax money is spent. It also backed digitizing healthcare records, held the country's first online town hall meeting, and moved toward the more efficient cloud computing model, which essentially outsources some storage and processing of government files to companies such as Google. Search engine wars. Google is still the world's dominant search engine, but it faced its first real challengers in 2009 as smaller search companies came up with new ideas about the way people can and should find information online. An oddball search engine called Wolfram Alpha made big news in the spring when it debuted as a tool that calculates the answers to user queries instead of sending web surfers to lists of website links as Google does. But the major newcomer was Microsoft's Bing, a quote-unquote decision engine that introduced new ways to sort through photos online and to search for products. Bing quickly grabbed a foothold, gaining 10% of the search market by the end of the year. Smart electricity use. The economic recession and a federal stimulus package prompted an oldish idea in frugal gadgetry to take off in a new way. Smart technology invaded homes and public works projects in hopes of making our use of fossil fuels more efficient. Smart grid technology monitors energy use and helps steer consumption to times of day when other people aren't using much electricity, a time when it is cheaper to power appliances and more juice is available. The federal government invested billions in smart grid in 2009 that connects homes and apartments with power plants. Consumer-level devices took off too. Google released a power meter service that gives homeowners reports on their energy use on the web or on mobile phones. General Electric and others promoted smart appliances such as hot water heaters. This helped further to promote helpful energy costs. Most homes didn't have smart meters in 2009, but that leaves room for plenty of expansion next year. Wow, that's the end of that article. There's so much is in this piece, and again, I'm going to link to it in the show notes over at chrisnessy.com/148. But thank you, Stella. This was a really interesting article that I've been sitting on to use in this episode since you tweeted to me, and I think it'll be fun from time to time to reflect on historical technology. So if there's something you want to remember on a future episode, go to chrisnessy.com/feedback to share your thoughts on technology that has maybe gone by the wayside or it looks completely different. I'm a fan of history. I teach history. Maybe this will be a fun way to integrate history into the House of EdTech podcast. And that's my EdTech thought. All right, so as the title of this episode tells you, it's 2020, so why not talk about some new tech and some ideas in technology and education that you should be trying or considering or thinking about here this year. So first up, and these are in no particular order, I have no affiliation with anything I'm about to say, so let's get right to it. First up is Adobe Aero, A-E-R-O, which I will link to in the show notes, of course. Adobe Aero is the only all-in-one augmented reality authoring and viewing platform that makes it easier for designers and developers to design, collaborate, and publish interactive, immersive experiences in the real world. You can design and share augmented reality using assets you've created in things like Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, and more. With Aero, you can blur the lines between the physical and digital worlds, and there's no complex coding required. You can quickly build a scene by bringing in 3D models or 2D assets from Photoshop or Illustrator. Aero automatically optimizes your assets for augmented reality experiences. Aero also adds a whole new dimension to the way you could tell stories. You can make museum sculptures come to life. You could send a rocket into orbit around your classroom. Students can experience and share their ideas like never before. Augmented reality and virtual reality are going to continue to grow here in 2020. Maybe Adobe Aero will be something that you can use either for yourself or to expose your students to. And as far as I can tell, it's free to use. So again, go to the show notes at chrisnessy.com/148 and try Adobe Aero. Next up is TikTok. Yes, I'm mentioning TikTok again, but do not get turned off or tune out or skip ahead. Just put your finger down. Do not skip ahead. I said don't skip ahead. Okay. I encourage you to get the app before episode 149 drops a couple of weeks after you're hearing this, if you're hearing this on time. If not, and this is the future, hey, that's how the future works, go listen to episode 149 where I talk all about TikTok in education. I buy into the idea that TikTok in 2020 is like the beginning of Instagram or Twitter back in 2009, as we just talked about, or Instagram in 2011. There's a real opportunity here to stake your claim and have your students create really awesome and really creative content. And you can really develop a presence and share your message. Now, whether this is you or it's your students, this is where you want to create some content and try something new. But stay tuned. Episode 149 is going to be all about TikTok in education, where I'm going to be talking to 2 people about it. So you don't want to miss that. The next thing that I want to share here for something you should consider or try in 2020 is something that I got turned on to, I guess in the fall of 2019, and that is Google's Applied Digital Skills curriculum, program. I'm not sure what to call it. But as a teacher, you get access to engaging, ready-to-use video lessons. Your students will gain invaluable skills that prepare them for problem solving in the digital world we live in, and even stuff for us too. No matter which course and skill you choose, the process is simple. Number 1, you choose a video lesson. Number 2, the video hosts guide you through project-based lessons. Step 3, you complete lessons at home or at school. And 4, you apply new skills in your job, in your class, or in everyday life. Some lessons and skills could be completed in 45 to 90 minutes, and some could take as long as 7 to 9 hours. The courses are geared towards middle and high school learners as well as adult learners. And there are also some, later upper elementary level courses as well. But some of these middle and high school courses include creating a resume, financial budgeting, evaluating the credibility of online sources, annotating text in Google Docs, understanding your digital footprint, designing an infographic in Google Drawings. These are just some of the 97 lessons that are available, and that's 97 as I record this in January of 2020. For the adult learner, like yourself, you might be interested in the variety of G Suite certification lessons like Docs, Drive, Gmail, Slides, or perhaps how to use Google to find a new job would be of interest to you. Additionally, you can also send lessons to Google Classroom, and you can assign specific lessons to your students to work on, and you can track what they're doing and track their progress. In rapid fire fashion, 2 tools that you've probably also heard me talk about in the past that you should try with your students if you haven't already would be Flipgrid and Wakelet. Both tools are great in different ways, but both are engaging and they allow students and you to be creative with content and communication. Now, I'd love to know what you're excited about trying with your students or trying at your school in 2020. I'd also like you to consider what you're going to try before this current school year comes to a close. I know it's January, but hey, we all know the end of the school year is coming. This has been a topic of conversation on Podcast PD, in fact. That other podcast that I appear on. The end of the school year is a great time to try new lessons, new projects, new activities, and pedagogical strategies. You've got a great rapport with your current students, parents, and your colleagues. Try some new things before next school year when we all know the truth is everything and everyone is new, and it can sometimes be overwhelming. So why not try something new in January? Go try augmented reality. Go play with Adobe Aero. Let's play with TikTok. Let's try to give our students some real tangible digital skills. Let's have them do Flipgrid. Let's have them do Wakelets. Let's have them try all these new things. Let's get them creating, communicating, collaborating, and thinking critically. If you'd like to share something you're doing or you're going to do, just go to chrisnessy.com/feedback to send me a message, and I would be happy to share that on a future episode of the podcast. Now it's time for the House of EdTech VIP. And I'm going to take this opportunity to encourage you not to follow somebody new, but to weed your PLN. I know that I normally use this segment to encourage you to follow someone new, and I will certainly be doing that in all the other episodes here in 2020. But for now, I'm encouraging you and I'm giving you permission to go through the people that you follow on Twitter and unfollow the people that aren't bringing you value. It's okay. Do you realize that you're following people who haven't tweeted in months or years? Do you realize you followed people you've met in a Twitter chat and you've never spoken to that person again after that Twitter chat? Spring is coming, but you don't need to wait to clean your feed. Over my holiday break, I took this task on, and I cut down the number of people I follow from almost 1,700 down to 858 people as I'm recording this episode. I unfollowed people that don't follow me, except for, big name people who would probably never follow me, but I want to know what they say. I unfollowed people who I've never spoken with, and people who don't really put anything out on Twitter that either A is for me or B, I just don't find valuable. There's a chance I unfollowed you. If that's the case, let me know. I do want to be connected to you if you're giving your time to listen to me and consume my content. I do value you, and I appreciate you. But say hello. Because the reality is, you can't follow and keep up with thousands of people. I see people who follow literally tens of thousands of people or a few thousand people. I got to say, once I started unfollowing people, it really cleaned up my timeline. And TweetDeck in Chrome is my Twitter tool of choice to manage it. And yes, I had people reach out to me when I tweeted about this to share, how to use lists. And I know how to use Twitter lists. And I do have Twitter lists and I follow hashtags. But I want to make sure that the people I'm following, that I can truly follow. It would be really tough to fight the algorithm and really feel connected to thousands and thousands of people. If I'm not following you and you really want to get in touch with me, go to chrisnessy.com/feedback, send me an email. I believe I have it set where anybody can send me a DM on Twitter. So if you want to have a conversation, let's do that. That's what I have for the House of EdTech VIP. I'm encouraging you to clean out your PLN. So there you go. Thank you for checking out this episode of the House of EdTech. I really appreciate that you took the time to make this podcast part of your anytime, anywhere professional development. I hope you're inspired to try one of the tools I mentioned, and I hope you consider sharing your story by going to chrisnessy.com/feedback. That's something I really want to do more of here in 2020, and that's get your voice here on the show. For the show notes, again, go to chrisnessy.com/148, and you'll see links and everything else that I talked about. Now, if you enjoy the House of EdTech, make one more resolution here to start the year. Tell somebody about the House of EdTech podcast. Word of mouth is the best way to share a podcast you love. I'd also like to invite you to become an awesome supporter. My Awesome Supporter program is powered by Patreon, which allows a consumer of content like you to support a creator of content like me. I'd like to take a minute to thank all of my awesome supporters. Thank you to Anthony Arnault from the New Teacher Podcast at newteacher.org, Eric Kurtz from Control-Alt-Achieve, Dan Gallagher from gallaghertech.edublogs.org, Carlos Garza, a.k.a. Mr. G, from the Aced Tech Podcast, Peggy George from Classroom 2.0 Live, Jen Giffen, yes, the incomparable Jen Giffen from Shooks and Giff, the podcast. Find more at shooksandgiff.com. Jeff Herb, my OG patron. Thank you, my brother. Jeff Herb can be found at instructionaltechtalk.com. Mike Messner at TeacherMike72. JP Prezavento from the Bits and Bytes of Education podcast. Find all the things he's doing over at jpprez.com. And Kyle Wilcox at Level Up EdTech on Twitter. If you would like to become an awesome supporter, just head over to chrisnessy.com/awesome, and it'll give you all the information you need and how to do that and how it works, and I would really appreciate that. The next episode of the House of EdTech is, again, going to be episode 149. This is going to come to you on January 26th, 2020, where we are going to be talking all about TikTok in education, and I will be sharing not one, but 2 conversations with you about TikTok and how it can add value to education if we take the right approach. So you don't want to miss that. I'm really looking forward to that. I've already had one conversation as I'm recording this, and I'm going to have another conversation real soon for that episode. Until next time, thanks for learning with me, and remember, happy 2020, happy New Year, oh yeah, and remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try.